starting this for the second day now, I still feel scared, and as scared as I was yesterday, but not as dreading as I was yesterday. It did do me a lot of good to get all of that out that I was feeling yesterday, and it helped me to sort of feel lighter and think more clearly. I still feel scared though. Today, after yesterday, I called different agencies and I called all the referrals that I got from the shelter and housing places that I called yesterday, and most of them are either weren't in office, or actually I'm trying to think. No, I didn't get a single person today, or a single actual call. All the referrals I called, I either got their voicemails, or I had they closed a lot earlier than some of the other ones did, and I didn't know. At least one of them had closed 30 minutes before I called them, and I had no idea. They have a very early closing time, so I missed that. Left some voicemails with a few others. And, yeah, so I didn't get to talk to anyone today, and that's nerve-wracking in its own way. So I did it all while I was taking a walk, and came back and just had to cook myself something to eat and keep going. So at least I'm a step further. It stalled for sure, but I'm sure something will come of it. Maybe not, maybe, and they'll have to find something else. But, it still leaves that feeling in my stomach, that sort of pit. It's very scary. But, I I started looking up different things and trying to find some way to calm my nerves, and then I did find a few things. A video or two, I looked for voice acting today just to see, something fun as a hobby, just maybe release some steam doing a voice, or looking for casting calls or things like that. The one casting call I did find, though, it called for professional equipment and, you know, clear sound and things like that. I don't have the money to buy a proper mic, or I don't even have the greatest voice for voice acting. It's very light. I'm sure I could put on a voice though if I needed to. But I mean, the casting call I saw was so very clear on perfect audio and professional, not perfect, but professional quality audio. And yeah, I don't have that. I don't have that at all. I'm just recording off of my phone, and I listened back to the line reads that I did, and it was like, ugh. It's the environment I'm in isn't conducive at all to voice acting. There's always sounds in the background, or a car driving by, or You can just hear the room I'm in, and even then, it's a phone mic, so it's so finicky to me modulating or changing my voice in any way. So I'll probably keep doing that just for fun, but unless I can find a casting call that doesn't mind audio with okay quality. I keep where I live. There is no closet. There's no there's no soundproof room where I am. In fact, you can probably hear the fan going in the background. Me turn that off. But in the place where I live, there are no closets, and the bathroom is actually the echoiest part of the entire place, and where you can hear the most from the outside. Yeah. But I found some good advice, and I was pleased that a lot of that advice is things that I had already started doing for myself. It always feels nice because when you see that advice and you realize you're already doing it, it's like, okay, I must be just mentally I must be pretty good that I was able, not good but mature or on the right track, something like that. Like, okay, I've got a good enough foundation that I was able to figure out something good for me without needing to do over research. And then you find the good advice and it's like, oh, okay, I was doing that. That feels nice. It does feel nice. But yeah, what I saw was things like making a log of, well, like jotting down what you're thinking of, what your feelings are, what you're afraid of, which is pretty much what this is. And things like logging or writing down like notes and ideas that you have, little inspirations, or a story idea, art idea, a drawing idea, a comic idea, things like that, which I already did, which is nice. Low pressure tasks when you're in the middle of a sort of survival mode. You're definitely not in the mental state to be super creative. But you get those little things, two different paths, similar adaptation or same adaptation, coming to the same conclusion on that aspect. But the one I didn't think of was, well, I guess technically, that does make me a bit happy to think that, technically, I guess so, is, making a log on as you're watching a TV show or playing a game, your experience on it, what you felt when you were watching each scene, what it made you think, the little impulses of just like, oh, that character looks cool, or that was interesting, or I just noticed that this person does this, or oh, that character made me excited. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, or I really like how the story is going here, or if it's a game, like, oh, I won this match, that made me upset, but I got over it and I think I can improve, or things like that. Making and the same thing with watching the show or a cartoon, just like you can log down the different story things if it has a story in the first place, things like that. And yeah, I recognized today and a bit yesterday, it's partly why I'm doing this, I guess, is taking care of your body, making sure that you're healthy and going out for a walk, doing a run, finding something to do exercise. And also the freedom to find hobbies. That's a tough one, though. I don't have anyone to talk to. I don't have any way to really travel. And I have no money to pay for anything of a significantly new experience, so the best I can do is making some music or writing something down, which, I mean, I wonder what's the difference there between writing as a hobby versus writing in a utilitarian way, just to jot down notes or ideas and things like that. I guess there'd be more of a creative effort if it was writing as a hobby, which is interesting, something I wouldn't mind doing. But, you know, finding other interests like making music, that's fun. But I'm limited quite a bit on that. Like, I wouldn't be able to go look for a hobby on, like, learning how to play a board game or anything like that, or a hobby of boxing, or, you know, finding other interests. Not even necessarily a hobby, just finding other interests like boxing or climbing, fishing. What else? There's plenty of hobby or interests out there. There's plenty of things like that to become interested in. Um, Baking, gardening. I already said climbing. Let's see. I can't think of any right now. But, sort of making your life more interesting. But I think my life is interesting, but the person I was listening to, the people I listened to, you know, just to see it, it struck me that a lot of their advice is sort of for when you're in that safe environment and the constraints on your abilities to do something come from a different source. They're more mental, they're more behavioral, they're more external. I'm not sure if external's the right word. Versus something closer to what I'm going through, where there's a lot of internal danger and turmoil and survival instinct and being on alert. This, what's the word? This necessary mindset that the situation is calling for, that naturally clashes with the environment to be creative. Eats up those resources, has to sort of close you off and hone your focus onto just surviving, or figuring out what to do next, or planning. Those low pressure tasks, just they help to carry your creativity in the background until you can settle somewhere safe. Excuse me. But I realize that I can't be too down on myself. I shouldn't be down on myself or punishing myself for not being able to do things that those people I was seeking advice from, when I really look, I mean, that person I'm listening to, they're in a studio. They've got a nice mic. They have support. They have friends. They have family. They're traveling between entire countries. They have fallbacks. They have friends. They have and it's amazing. It's it's fantastic, I think. I wish it could be that my situation was that I just needed to overcome a behavioral hurdle or a habitual hurdle or a mental hurdle, or that it was just a bad mindset, and then I would be able to do all the things that I wanted to do. But I realize my situation isn't the same. There's overlap in some areas, but behind that, the resources, the ability, what I have at my disposal, the support, it's entirely different lives that happen to overlap on a few ideas, happen to overlap on a few surface level shared experiences. But it's like two different reasons. Like, why am I not able to be creative right now? And for one person, two people will say I'm not able to be creative right now, and for one person it'll be, it's my mindset. It's that I expect too much. I'm a perfectionist, or I'm scared of starting or taking the leap, or I don't think my story is good enough, or what if an audience doesn't like it, or am I making art for other people or myself, or it'll be it'll be something like that, or I just don't think I'm interesting enough, or I don't have enough, I don't practice enough, or I don't doodle enough, or I don't have the right habits yet, and I just need to learn the right habits. Whereas the other person, it's like, I have the habits, I have the mindset that I need, but I can't draw because there's like a wild animal stalking me. I know that's exaggerated, but that's how it feels. It's like, darn, I have the mindset I need. I have, I'm learning more about myself. I'm figuring things out, the right habits. But darn it, I'm having to survive, and it's just eating away at the rest of the energy needed for any amount of depth, for anything deeper, having to analyze and watch the environment and try and keep myself safe and plan and doing all those things. It's like if you only invited your friend over when a fire has broken out in your house and you want to hang out with your friend, but at the same time you're having to rush, fire blankets and water and and then like a pipeline breaks, and this is the only time that you invite your friend over, and you're amazing friends and you know exactly what you need to do and how you two hang out, and you have a great relationship, but it's out of your hands to be able to practice it. Because they're two different mind flows, two different mind states, and when you try to force hanging out with the friend, if you try to force hanging out with your friend while you're busy trying to put out a fire that's taking over your house, there's well, you're not going to be able to hear what your friend says. There's a high chance that your friend will get burned or hurt, or you'll get distracted and more damage will ensue, or it'll strain the relationship every time you hang out. It's always during those times, and there could be injury. It could trying to force it two completely different modes. And there are some times when I find that safe mode, that safe time to be creative. But it's definitely the rarity. It's not common at all. And so I just have to know that, like, discipline in this case, discipline, not even just in this case, but discipline means not knowing when not to do something as much as knowing when to do something. Or you'll end up tearing down, breaking, burning out, damaging the relationship and or the experience, the association, the emotions, the capacity you have with that friend. That's something last time when I spoke, I talked about that overwhelming sense of freedom that I had. And for the first time, part of that was for the first time suddenly feeling almost unlocked and feeling that this feeling of almost unlimited creativity. The thought that being in this survival mind state would no longer become the 99%. Of course, there would always be having to take care of responsibilities and effort, working, getting a job, but that's not the same as what I'm referring to. What I'm referring to is more has to do with relationship. It's relational. I'm reminded of that story I heard, or I real life sort of thing. It was the guy who drew the Donald Duck comics, and he would talk in one of his like marriages before he got divorced. It talked about how he had a wife who would destroy his drawings and his sketches and put him in fear and anguish, and how he wasn't really able to function in that, and then he had to get divorced and leave, and then he found that safe place. The conditions weren't perfect or ideal, but they don't need to be to feel safe. It's just a place where you can, even for a moment, focus on what you want to make and what you're trying to make, and that creativity, those stories, that you don't have to keep monitoring your environment and wondering when a person is going to suddenly lash out, or having to read into each emotion to see what a person is trying to do, or being worried about being worried about that any second it could be taken from you, that you have no support, or things like that. That safe spot where you can breathe and let your shoulders down for a second, and you're not listening to the background anymore. You're off of survival and alertness, and you're able to open up for a moment. And I realize that that's what a lot of the people that I listen to, that is what they have. Their struggles are with the creativity. Their struggles are with the relationship to that creativity. Their struggles it is struggles within a safe mode. And I just have to realize that I'm not operating in that same place as they are. Of course, these people that I listen to, they might struggle with things like, I gotta find like a place to rent, or find some way to make money, or I'm fatigued or tired. But at the end of the day, they have support systems. They have friends. They have, I can't even list it because I can't even imagine it. It's just not been my experience. having a family, having a car, even even that much helps out so much. Having a income, having a safe place where their mind can settle. I have to recognize they're very different from me, who's alone and no support. But I guess that's the danger of trying to compare people's lives to each other, is you start trying to look at what other people have and figure out why you don't have the same things, or you just can't imagine everything that they go through as they live. Two very different experiences. You're, like I said earlier, you're only even intersecting in this one area. But other than that, you live entirely different lives. Different availabilities, different processes, different backgrounds, opportunities, relationships, and reputations. Different abilities to accomplish similar goals. So there was a time when you were both trying to accomplish something similar, but that's where the similarity ends, and the rest is just the individual context. So I suppose it's dangerous. It's not safe or advisable, maybe not dangerous, but it's not wise to try and use other people's experiences to try and validate your own life. You just have to know that what your life is what you're going through. Because then you might end up assuming things about another person's life that aren't true. But then that's also why you pay attention and study and figure out the difference between what someone else is going through or has gone through and what you're going through and have gone through. So all that I've said is the closest I can figure it, which is fine. Even if I couldn't figure it, I suppose wouldn't really change my circumstance at all, and I'd still be going through what I'm going through with the same survival state, the same everything. But that can be I'm not going to say distressing, but it's interesting to realize, like, everybody will probably share some level of similar struggle or similar on the surface situations, but the summation of their lives up to that point will cause the outcome to be completely different between two different people. And rather than just focusing on that one part where you two had something similar for a moment, you also have to look behind the other person and to try and see the entire life behind them that led up to that, and just realize that you don't need to compare yourself to how that person succeeded in that spot or found what they were looking for, because besides using a few shared words, their experience with that was an entirely different, or mostly different, process than what you're going through. I saw that today with someone I saw who had posted something about how, they had their own anxieties and fears, but at the same time they were able to keep being creative and create, but they were doing job applications just like I am. They were searching for a home just like I am. But then I have to realize, no, it's not just like I am. It's the simple fact that, yes, they are looking for a place to live, and yes, that person is looking for a job and applying, but then you have to step back and look at what else their life has been and realize it's been a completely different it's been a completely different course than the life I have lived. Different things going on in the background. The entire context and situation of it just isn't the same. I know I keep repeating myself on that, but it's because I'm still trying to comprehend it as much as I can. I think if I continue on now, though, with that, I'll probably just keep going in circles. I realized how much different perspectives like that can affect how two people see a similar situation. How they see how that overlap, though, even though there is that light overlap, one person can be completely oblivious to a situation that another person has lived in. I feel that all the time. I have one friend, he lives far away. He lives very, very far away from me. I have one friend, and he'll tell me about how, like, all these amazing things about how he'll share something with a group and they'll be so excited, or his parents will call him to watch something with him, or will take an interest in what he's doing, and all of these things sound so magical to me. And then I wonder what most go through. And then I realize in what my situation is more clearly that I'm isolated and alone. But now I want something. I've seen it and I've tasted it, and even though I'm scared, I'm still hopeful. Even though I don't know what to do or where I'm supposed to go, and part of me just hopes someone will save me. you know, or at least offer a helping hand. That's human to wish for, right? It's it's wishful, but that's what wishes are for. And I realized that the healthiest thing to do is to the healthiest thing to do for my own mental state is to live as things are stable and normal to a certain degree. Still keeping boundaries, still doing what I've been doing, but not to spend 99% of my time fretting or having anxiety over everything. Keep trying to find some path forward, some road, even though I don't know what it is, even though there's no one who has gotten back to me. Yesterday I called one of the places I was referred to, and the person said that they would pass my message along to the other person and they'd get back to me today, but that didn't happen. That's a downer. But in the meantime, while I can do what I can, I guess the best thing I can do is putting things together and trying to plan into the background and believing that I won't feel like this forever. It's like when you get sick and you get a cold and you forget what it was like to be healthy. But you remember that you were healthy at one point, and that's the thing, though. This relationship that I'm in, it never was healthy at any point. I just didn't realize what was happening. But I remember what it was like when I felt healthy. Even apart from that, I remember moments when I was separated from that and it was quiet and things felt stable and safe. And that feeling of freedom, I remember all these things, and so it helps me to know that this figurative feeling of sickness, this anxiety, this scaredness, it won't last forever. So while I plan those things in the background, I gotta make sure that I recognize what I'm going through. Not suppressing it or bottling it up, because that just creates more of that anxiety and that stress later, those heart palpitations, that anguish, but also treating myself with respect, taking care of my body, doing things like this to get those thoughts out instead of just sitting on them all the time, finding anchors that help make me realize when I need to do something to get myself back to feeling healthy, you know. Asking myself, why do I feel awful right now? It's because I haven't slept in a really long time. I've been working hard for hours on end. I haven't cooked for myself in a while. I haven't eaten anything, you know. And what do I do to get myself back to that healthy state? Well, I cook, I exercise, I get my rest. I I don't try to force creativity in that survival state where it's just going to get chewed up and torn up and, you know, dragged across the concrete that is that survival mindset, you know, sticking to those more low pressure creative things, preparing myself for that moment when I am safe, and it'll all be there waiting for me. And just going forward with confidence. I was left here alone by myself, but there's still time left on rent on this place. You know, I got so scared and worked up that part of my mind was just like, even though I knew I was planning for the future, the anxiety and the fear still made it feel like you have to jump out of the plane now. You know, jump out of the train, jump ship this instant. But I still have a little more time, a few more options. I hope. I had to stay distant and neutral, and but the person who left me here and has been treating me poorly, and even though it's been very difficult to deal with someone who is a narcissist, I'll at least manage to convince that person hmm, at least that person will give me a ride or two to the job that I applied for. That's the tricky part, though, is I don't know how long that will last. I don't know how stable the place I'm living in is right now. I don't know. I don't know how stable things are right now. I can't tell. I really can't. And that's why I'm planning in the background, you know. That's why I can't rely on one or the other. So, on one hand, I have to live as if things are stable, taking care of my health and things like that. You know, confidently go into that job, accept the benefit of what I'm being given right now, even though it could be taken away at any moment. It doesn't mean our relationship is different. It doesn't mean that the other person has changed or that everything is fine. It just means that there's that temporary eye of the storm. There's a temporary lull where things aren't at fever pitch, but that doesn't mean they're okay. It just means that there's a little bit of quiet in between. But maybe as I try and build something and plan something in the background, and as I use what benefits I have right now that haven't been taken away or anything like that, maybe more options can come. The problem is that it's all in the hands of somebody else. The only thing I have control over, not control, it's not that I want control or authority or anything like that. I'm not interested in power or things like that, but the one thing I have, because not even control, I can't control what other people choose to do, or if they choose to help me or not, or if they choose to pick up the phone. The one thing I have any say in is trying to plan something. And I get scared. I get scared that if I admit something like that, that people will think, oh, then you're fine. Then you have nothing to worry about. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Why do you need help then? It's like I'm standing on a bridge with so many cracks in it. Some of it is breaking down into sand, but I need to be able to get to the other side, and in the meantime I'm trying to see if anyone can help me build a bridge underneath, put a boat underneath, put a tarp, a trampoline, anything. Right now the bridge I'm standing on isn't breaking as quickly as before, and as much as I can to get to the other side, I'll walk across this breaking bridge. But it could collapse at any second. But as much as I can find benefit in walking across it to try and get to the other side as far as I can. But there's no guarantee that in one step it won't break, or in the next 50 steps it won't break or fall apart, or something will happen to it. It's that part of me that wishes that another bridge would just appear and I could jump onto it, or a helicopter would come with a rope and I could climb up and get carried across to the other side, or helped across, or that someone would something would. Anything would. I'm not good at asking for help. I've never really known how to do it well. Not without feeling immensely guilty anyway. Or feeling like I'm taking advantage of people. Or that I'm asking too much. Every step across a breaking bridge is hopeful. I don't have all the right analogies or the right metaphors that I need to get the feeling across, but I need help. I want help. And I'll continue to try. I won't depend on the wishfulness, but I won't get rid of it either. All of them can be at the same time. But I wouldn't mind whatever helps me get to the other side sooner. So I am still scared. But I am more hopeful than I was before. And that does feel better.